clarify some issues that I have read concerning the property over the bank. Starting with, make one thing clear from the beginning. When whatever I'm doing in the position as Minister of Rummy, I do my utmost to make sure I'm transparent and everything is done according to the procedures that is in place by the government of St. Martin. I know previously, before I assumed the position as minister, in my previous function, there was a discussions that government had acquired property over the bank, and that the ministry had to initiate and do some research to start the process to have the property properly subdivided and prepare terms of reference for putting in the infrastructure and so forth. When I became a minister of Rummy, the ministry, all ministers does receive from their ministries a transitional document, and I received such, and part of that transitional document, the ministry outlines policies and priorities that they are busy with, and one of the things on that transitional document was the over-the-bank property. In my initial discussions with the SG from the ministry, we indicated to continue the process. The ministry was busy with assessment. There was 2 sections to the property. There's a built area with a certificate of a measurement 290 from 1984, and an unbuilt area with a certificate of a measurement 162 from 2014. The assessment was done. I indicated that they should prepare a terms of reference, that we start with the subdivision of the property. I received the advice for the terms of reference on February 24th of 2016. That was approved, and in March of 2016, it was published in the local newspapers, and the bidding process began. On the 21st of April 2016, it was brought forth, the Council of Ministers, to award the assignment for the subdivision plan for the property. That was approved, and on June 2016, a letter of acceptance was signed by the company ICE to begin the work of the subdivision of the property. In July of 2016, the end of July, the subdivision was completed. Along with the ministry, I received the final version of the subdivision of that property, and so the process began with what was awarded, what was finalized, the subdivision, and then in the interim, we received, I would say, close to 300 requests specifically for over the bank. There were some requests came in alluding to a previous request that was submitted. Some citizens indicated, listen, in 2011, I put in a request, and I'm just putting in a new request, and I'm referring back to that request. But the notion somehow is that because an election is right around the corner, that somehow we quickly went and given out lots and so forth. That is far from the truth. It's a process that started in December, as I just indicated. When I received the transitional document, this is what we are working on, and then we went through the whole procedure, preparing a terms of reference, putting it out for bid, awarding the contract, and then the company then providing, and it was negotiations in between. Of course, they presented different drafts of the subdivision, and eventually one was agreed upon, and that was approved. Again, it's the whole master plan, I would say, of providing affordable housing to young professionals, apart from the subdivision for granting of residential lots over the bank. I've also had discussions with the St. Martin Housing Foundation, And of course, I alluded to this previously with APS, with the development of the Welgelegen property. With the St. Martin Housing Foundations, 2 properties was transferred to them recently. That was the Foga property and a property in Upper Princess Quarter where our old hotel was located. The Upper Princess Quarter property, 24 units will be built for sale, again for young professionals. The Foga project, 32 units will be constructed, also for sale for young professionals. The target group then is young professionals. And the Welgelegen property, I had a meeting, a presentation with APS and the architects. Groundbreaking will be sometime the last week of September. And there are 61 2- and 3-bedroom units will also be built for sale. And the target group, again, is young professionals. So again, if you look at the overall strategy, it's about providing housing for young professionals, and the property over the bank is just a part of the overall policy. So again, we started with paving of dirt roads. That is now being executed. If then we do some neighborhood and the other neighborhoods is for a later date, I mean, then they could raise the same thing, or because it's election time, you're paving roads. But again, if I got to follow that trend, it's best we sit down and do nothing till after election. But there is a process that was followed. You need to go through the bidding process and so forth. And now, starting from July, things are being executed. And so I just want to make that clear, that this is not some kind of election gimmick. I know all kind of things will come up in the papers, but this has been a process that has been ongoing before I was even minister. When the property was transferred to Country St. Martin, and the process started, and it's in the phase now where it's being executed. Okay, so with that, I would close, and I would receive any questions for clarity. Thank you.
Yesterday, we commissioned the first of 3 new ambulances for St. Martin. 2 other ambulances are currently under production and being outfitted, and they're expected to arrive within several months. And interesting to note, all of them are 4-wheel drive vehicles. Some of the previous ambulances were 2-wheel drive, and knowing some of the locations that the ambulances need to access, sometimes that was difficult. So all of the 3 new ambulances are 4-wheel drive vehicles, and like I said, the first was commissioned yesterday. In addition to the new ambulances, we've also ordered, and the first has arrived as well with the new ambulance, 7 hydraulic stretchers. Many of the employees in the ambulance department have complained that they have problems with their back or joints or knees because the old stretchers are manual stretchers, and they have to be, when you put the person in the stretcher, you have to lift them physically, and that puts a stress on the employees. And so the hydraulic stretchers, you can just push a button and it lifts up so that they don't have the same problems, hopefully, with back, knees, and other joints. In addition to that, we've also finalized the plans to purchase, to digitalize the run sheets for the ambulance. So currently, the administration for the ambulance is a paper system. So whenever the ambulance goes out, makes a run, whether it's a critical run or a non-critical run, they fill out paperwork, and that needs to be entered into the administration. That process will now be digitalized. So a number of investments into the ambulance department, which is obviously a critical part of the country's emergency response team. But besides investing in new equipment, we have also invested in training for the ambulance staff. This was done with the RAV out of Brabant. This is a training service that worked together with the ambulance staff in St. Martin. And as well, this, I think, also dovetails well into the ministry's cooperation with different social partners in terms of first aid courses in the community. So in terms of a first-line response, it's always best if citizens, and in particular we've seen it with teachers, that they've gone through training, that they know what to do in emergency situations or what not to do in emergency situations, as well as different CPR techniques. So all of this, I think, fits very well into the ministry's plan of improving overall quality of health care in St. Martin, and in this particular instance, in particular, focused on the ambulance service. But naturally, investments all need to be paid back. So not only have we worked on investments into the ambulance department, we're also looking at how do we improve the revenues that the ambulance department collects. Sadly, over the years, the revenue collection from the ambulance department has been very low. In 2014, it was 66,505 guilders. In 2015, it was 72,189 guilders. With changes that we've made now, and I'd like to thank people within the ministry, from within the cabinet, Selby Phillips, but also from the ambulance department, Sil Red Richardson, and Roxanne Howell, from finance of the ministry. In cooperation with the receiver's office, I'd like to thank Minerva Gums, head receiver, and her staff, as well as the SMMC, Davinia Carbier, the finance manager. So together with the partners, what we've arranged is a cooperation agreement with the medical center, since in the end, the ambulance brings most of the patients to the hospital. So one of the things that's happened and why the collections have been low is no fault of the receiver and no fault of the ambulance department. I think simply it's government's typical bureaucracy, that these paper run sheets were then later turned over to the receiver over probably a fairly long period of time, and then the receiver would generate invoices to go out to collect that money. And from experience, that process could take many, many months. And to give you an example, when a tourist comes, if they have an incident, they use the ambulance. By the time they are gone, it's months later that an invoice is ever generated, so collections is a real issue. So what we've done is we've made an agreement between the hospital, the ministry, and the receiver's office, and the ambulance department, that the hospital will now collect the fees on behalf of government. So that's where the cooperation with the receiver comes into place. So they are now entitled to collect the money on behalf of government, and they then turn over that money to the receiver's office. And in exchange for this service, we happily pay them a 10% commission for the work that they do. So this helps to support the revenues for the SMMC. It helps government to increase its revenues. As of May, projected through to December of 2016, the year we're in now, we are already projecting a threefold increase in the revenues to be collected for ambulance service. And for 2017, in particular in combination with the digitalization of the run sheets, we're expecting even greater revenues. And this is important, like I said, because all of the investments that we need to make eventually need to be paid for. And so just collecting money that's already on the street is obviously a critical part of government's function. Now, besides collecting the money that's on the street, or let's say the low-hanging fruit in the trees, to compare the tariffs of what St. Martin charges for ambulance service, St. Martin, for an emergency run, collects only 275 guilders, and for a non-emergency run, 138 guilders. Just a quick comparison with Curacao. Curacao collects 915 guilders for an emergency run versus 458 for a non-emergency run. So one of the priorities for the ministry going forward is going to be to adjust the tariffs to make sure that they're a more reasonable rate. Certainly, I believe there's room for increasing the tariffs, and in the end, that translates into higher quality of service for the people. Thank you very much.
This morning, I'd like to update the general public about some happenings within the ministry. The Division of Exams makes it known that as of 1st of September, the registration until the 30th of September, the registration is taking place for LUNS examen. So that is for all applicants who would like to sit the exams for VSBO levels, HAVO, VARIO, during next year when they are given. So the registration can take place during the month of September. This is at the Brook Towers building from 1 to 4 p.m. on the said dates. Candidates must always bring their valid photo ID, copy of their passport, as well as last grade lists. This is a great opportunity, so I would really like to highlight this in the media. Some students may have actually stopped school or have not passed their exams in the last session and now opt to do the lunch exam, so not sitting in classrooms to sit it with their regular classes. So this is an opportunity to still be able to get their diplomas. Of course, a lot of independent study and the like is required, so I wish much success to all those applicants as you make use of this opportunity. There will be an information session for all registered candidates after the registration is closed, which will take place in October on the 20th. Of course, we will be putting this in the media as well, the written media, in the government announcements pages. So look out for those things. I think it is very, very important. So many times people are asking questions and the information is there. So I would really like to encourage the population to make use of government's website, to look in the newspapers on that page for the information that we put out for the general public. Too many times they come right after the registration closes, and then it's a whole other year before it's offered again. So take heed of that information for those interested in doing the LUNS examens. Also, they would like to announce, or we'd like to announce as a ministry, that as last year, the past FBE exit exams are available for the same package price as the last time, 50 guilders at the same location, so that parents, schools, and the like can purchase these. In keeping with what the minister before me just said, any little way, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports uses lots of government funds. We generate very little, so this is a little way in which we can still add back to the coffers. Students and parents would like the opportunity to train with the old exams, and we have made them available for sale at a reasonable price. Also, this week marks the start, actually it's already ongoing, within culture. The culture department, with my blessing and actually my insistence, is working diligently to really put forward a plan for the revitalization of our natural and cultural heritage. As such, they have started stakeholders meetings and are actively busy right now in a workshop, which is titled Enhancing National Identity with Tourism Management in Heritage Sites. This workshop started on September 5th and runs until today, with active lectures from our invited guests from Jamaica. And so that's ongoing. They will be also touring several cultural projects, sites, tourism, attractive sites. And so in this doing, we would like to really come up with enhancing our tourism product, while, of course, educating our population about our cultural heritage, as well as our visitors. On Thursday, tomorrow, excuse me, this session or these sessions will culminate in a cultural symposium titled Forging a Stronger National Identity. Many local, or I should say all of our stakeholders who in the past have been quite active in preserving our cultural heritage have been invited to speak and contribute at this event. So this is the stakeholders meeting where they will be making presentations. This will take place tomorrow at Port de Plaisance from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. So I do encourage those participants to come out, take part in this, and as we take the first steps towards forging that national pride, a stronger national identity, and moving forward as a St. Martin people with pride. On Friday, the ministry has organized its second annual Sports Day as a team building event, and so the ministry will be close to the public on Friday upcoming. This is on Friday, September 9th. So that is for your information. Oops. Also, I'd like to update, I've had several inquiries. The recent storm that ravaged Florida did affect Tallahassee, where many of our students are. And we have been, I would just like to inform the general public that we have been in constant contact with those students directly via the department or the Division of Study Financing, but also through our liaisons there, the St. Martin Tallahassee Foundation. though they experience lots of wind and rain, many trees in Tallahassee, and somehow overhead cables, so they had serious issues with power. Most areas were out for about 3 to 4 days. The students, some of them left the area, went and stayed with friends, but being the resilient young people of St. Martin who have experienced much worse right here, they were able to organize, because a lot of them live in the same area called the Seminole Grand, and they shared food, had barbecues, etc., to avoid their food going to waste, and some took mini road trips, etc. The city of Tallahassee did provide cool-down areas within the city, the library, etc., where there was power. So the schools also had power, so it's mostly in the residential areas. And I did also hear on the news that getting the universities, as it's a university city, back up and running was the priority of the government. They are now back in sessions. Practically all areas have been restored. I can't give exact numbers, but our students do have power once again. And FAMU started yesterday, FSU and TCC started today. So I believe with that, most of the population can be gerust, at ease, that their children are doing well, they're back in contact with them, and everything is more or less back to normal. What I would like to do and announce, though, that if there are students, because we've had none hardship cases, but if there is or one or more hardship cases, that this information should be brought to the study financing division's attention so that we could do what we can to assist in these cases. Thank you very much, and I await further questions.
There are some remarks I would like to make in reference to the whole upheaval caused over an announcement made at a presentation done by the Minister of Finance at the USM sometime last week. While the minister was making his presentation, certain persons sitting in the audience covering the event for media outlet started posting making postings on Facebook, creating fear, the fear mongering, the rumor mongering, the Chinese are coming, the Chinese are taking over, it is bad for business, it is bad for the people, it is going to damage St. Martin, the gloom and doom because it is election time. It is unfortunate when media professionals misuse, I'm saying people are free, but when you come under the guise of the media and then you sit there to post negative things because the party you are supporting is in opposition, and you have to, because there's an election in the next couple of weeks, you have to do everything in your power to contribute to the rumors, make people feel that things are bad. It is a bad thing that is happening. What are the facts, or what are some of the issues that need to be addressed? The Minister of Finance, in the first half of his presentation, painted or gave an overview as to why the situation is not only on St. Martin, but worldwide. The lack of growth in GDP, the so-called richest 1% owning X amount, and that monies are actually just sitting in bank accounts, and the monies are not really being invested and circulated in the community or communities. And St. Martin has had, for the past years, a lack of growth or any significant growth in our GDP. Government's budget is facing challenges every year to be balanced and or remain balanced. Ministers are complaining about lack of investment in education, in public health, in our environment, in programs, because we simply cannot and do not generate sufficient funds. Where does it come from? And then the minister, towards the second part of the presentation, said, guess what? Voila, the government has landed an opportunity to have an impulse, provide an impact in our economic development, in our GDP. For several months, he said, together with the Prime Minister, he has been having discussions, and I would add also with the Minister of Romy, who has sat in on at least one of the meetings when it came to presenting the actual building plans and how would it fit in the area where construction would be carried out. But first of all, what is it? It is it is different in many ways, but in terms of a construction project, it is absolutely no different, probably on a larger scale than Westin when it was built. And where Westin was built, very close to the beach. It is no different to the extension of Pelican, Flamingo, etc., where they were built on a beach. It is no different than where Maho is located, on a cliff on the beach. It is no different, and we can continue. So in terms of a building project, the impression is being created that all of a sudden this government has gone wacko and they're going to allow some investors to build a project that is so massive or so huge or so big that St. Martin will succumb and sink. One politician even posted on their Facebook questions that are so ridiculous in terms of what happens if a hurricane comes, as if they were going to build it on the sand, and it was going to be built out of cardboard, and if a hurricane comes, it is going to blow it down.